A quick thank you to all of my Patreons, and a special shout out to Lemu, Firebringer Axel, Enigma Desu, and Ryder Nia for pledging the higher tiers. Your support is heavily appreciated. Hello everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Type Moon Character Showcase. If you didn't know, this is a series where I take a character from the Nasuverse and showcase them as the title suggests. Now, to celebrate the absolutely jaw-dropping announcement of the Tsukihime remake, I'm still trying to process the fact that that's real, I decided that now is the perfect time to take a look at the main heroine of the original Tsukihime story. So of course that means, today we'll be looking at Arcueid Bryuunstad. Arcueid is the titular moon princess of Tsukihime, and is widely considered the icon of classic Type Moon. You know, considering the fact that she's the daughter of the company's namesake, she's a very popular character in the fandom. And of course, being the main heroine of Tsukihime is pretty iconic too. Of course, with the remake, her lore might change, so this video will just be going over the classic lore of Arcueid. But with that being said, let's go over that. Many years ago, the will of the world, Gaia, called over celestial bodies to keep the human beings on its body in control. Those calls were heeded by the Aristoteles of the Moon, Crimson Moon Bryuunstad, also known as Type Moon. In exchange for living on the Earth, Crimson Moon created a new species to wield the powers of the planet and reshape the world to their will. This ability was called Marble Phantasm, a power of every member of this species would have as long as they're on Earth, and this ability is what allowed them to keep the humans in check. This species would become known as the True Ancestors, and while they were mostly an ideal species, they had one flaw that they inherited from Crimson Moon, an incredible thirst for blood. Over time, because of these impulses, the True Ancestors would eventually decrease in numbers, and after the death of Crimson Moon at the hands of Zelrech, their numbers dwindled into the low hundreds. During this time, one True Ancestor was born with the ability to use their Marble Phantasm to recreate the Millennium Castle Bryuunstad, the old lair of Crimson Moon. As such, this ancestor was given the name Bryuunstad, and was seen to be the closest that the species ever got to their original progenitor. This ancestor is the one that we now know as Arcueid Bryuunstad. Arcueid, being the prime True Ancestor, was never given any knowledge or experience outside of her role, leaving her to become somewhat of an emotionless girl. She dedicated her entire life to slaying ancestors that fell from grace, as well as their unintentional spawn, the Dead Apostles. However, this would all change when a priest of the church seeking immortality, Roa, chose to become a Dead Apostle because of his wish, and because of how he was enraptured by Arcueid, tricked her into drinking his blood. This event made Arcueid go berserk, and also turned Roa into one of the strongest Dead Apostle ancestors that would later be known as the Serpent of Akasha, an immortal ancestor that would reincarnate into different people after his death. During this event, Arcueid would kill every single member of her species, leaving her as the only true ancestor on the planet. Because of her deeds, Arcueid swore off drinking blood, and dedicated the rest of her existence to hunting down the many reincarnations of Roa, thus beginning a loop where Arcueid would put herself to sleep until Roa reawakened, and nothing about that cycle would change until the 17th reincarnation. Roa's 17th reincarnation would bring Arcueid to Misaki Town, where, as usual, she tried to hunt down Roa. However, being an inhuman existence, she tipped off the Nanaya instinct of Shiki Tono, who used his mystic eyes of death perception to kill Arcueid. Of course, Arcueid was a true ancestor, so she was able to recover herself, but this event took a large amount of her power. Obviously, after dying, she was kind of pissed off, and took to finding the boy that killed her. Obviously though, while that was the case, this was also the first time Arcueid felt something. Someone was able to kill her, someone that she never met before. This was a curiosity for her, and that curiosity grew quickly. By the time Arcueid found Shiki in the streets again, rather than be really angry, she was more interested in him, and wanted to spend time with the boy that managed to murder a true ancestor. After a run-in with some familiars, Arcueid gets Shiki to reluctantly agree to team up with her in return for what he did. During this time, the two learn about each other, their abilities and lives, and despite Arcueid's depowered state, they were even able to defeat the Dead Apostle ancestor, Narrow Chaos, who was hunting for Arcueid during this time. The two spent a lot of time together, where Arcueid would learn more about modern daily life, watching a movie, eating at a fast food joint, and finally, visiting Shiki's classroom for the first time. For Arcueid, her entire life was about hunting vampires, but ever since she met Shiki, she got to experience a normal life for the first time, firsthand. She tells him that the reason that she didn't drink blood is because Arcueid respects people, and that drinking someone's blood was not something that she could do in good conscience. They spend time together, talking about what it means to enjoy life, and as a result, Shiki promises to take Arcueid to more places in the future, in order to enjoy that life that she has. However, as a result of Shiki killing Arcueid, Arcueid had been slowly succumbing to her impulses, accidentally almost drinking Shiki's blood on multiple occasions. Despite that, Shiki persistently tries to convince Arcueid that he does not fear her, confessing his own feelings for her. Despite that, Arcueid disappears in order to confront Roa on her own at Shiki's school. Shiki arrives in time to see Arcueid gain the upper hand, however, ultimately take a fatal attack from Roa. Shiki, in a panic, tried to get Arcueid to drink her blood so that she could still live despite the injury. However, Arcueid refuses, just simply wanting a kiss from him. After the following fight, however, Shiki defeated Roa, killing him with his eyes and returning the power that Roa took back to Arcueid, allowing her to revive herself from the brink of death once again. However, despite that, she wasn't able to hold herself back from her own impulses, yet decides to visit Shiki one last time. The two finally meet in Shiki's classroom, where Arcueid thanks Shiki for the time that they spent together, which will end up as memories that she can keep as she sleeps. She thanks him for the happiness he gave her, and Shiki ultimately lets Arcueid go, yet tearfully laments the things that he was never able to do for her. In the end though, Shiki pledges to continue living, and ultimately decides to do it for Arcueid's sake. However, in the far future, Ciel helps Shiki track down the Millennium Castle Bryunstud in order to search for the sleeping Arcueid. Shiki then breaks in, cutting the chains that Arcueid bound herself with, as even despite the things that she may do, Shiki simply wanted to be with her, no matter what. So, Arcueid accepted, as even if she may have her impulses, the two will always be together. Arcueid is, fittingly for the icon of Tsukihime, a character with a lot on her shoulders. She's got a very recognizable design, she's one of the most memorable characters in all of Type Moon, and her backstory is drowned in so much lore and ideas, all of which have some pretty good stuff. Arcueid is the biggest insight we have into the world of the True Ancestors and Crimson Moon Bryunstud, the very namesake of the company. And even still, we never actually see Arcueid's true potential, yet the seeds were still planted for those interested. Despite all of that though, what appeals about Arcueid to me is also the simple things. Arcueid, admittedly, is quite a simple character. Her idea and concept isn't particularly one that's unique. However, just because an idea is common, doesn't mean it's bad. Arcueid's story about finding the joy in a daily life is a message that can apply to a lot of people, and it's also one that fits in perfectly with Shiki's own story of living life to the best you can despite what may happen. To enjoy a normal daily life and learning the basic things, that is what it means to live, and Arcueid shows that. For abilities and quirks, we must first go over the most prevalent part of her character. Arcueid is, as we all know, a true ancestor, and virtually all of her abilities are pretty much what's standard for every true ancestor. However, Arcueid is more gifted and talented with those abilities. To begin, like other ancestors, Arcueid receives backup from the world's counterforce. Their power can always equally match their opponent as long as they're on the planet. However, this link can be severed through killing all of the land in an area, using an extremely powerful bounded field, or through a reality marble. Being the spawn of Crimson Moon, all ancestors inherited the vampiric impulse, which makes them desire to drink blood of other living beings, turning them into dead apostles. This impulse can be restrained, however, doing so takes a massive amount of power from a true ancestor, and is the main reason Arcueid never even comes close to showing her full power throughout the entire story of Tsukihime. In terms of combat, Arcueid can use her claws normally, and due to her species, is impervious to both physical and conceptual attacks. Should she be killed through some extreme circumstances such as Shiki's mystic eyes, she can also rejuvenate herself, albeit her powers will be weakened considerably for a very long time. At nighttime, however, she is virtually impossible to kill, with this ability being heightened at the full moon. As she is a vampire, she also has the mystic eyes of enchantment, which allow her to hypnotize people to her will. And finally, like other true ancestors, Arcuaid's strongest ability is her Marble Phantasm. Marble Phantasm is essentially the ability to change the world to one's will. Basically, it's literal world edit. Since true ancestors were made to govern humans, this ability allowed them to access the planet in whatever way they desired. Moreover, the reason Arcuaid was given the name Brunstad is a result of her ability to recreate the Millennium Castle Brunstad using this ability since birth, along with, of course, her innate power. Arcuaid's abilities are kind of overpowered in practice, although they're not necessarily interesting or unique. Her ability is basically God mode. She's literally able to change the world to her will, hypnotize others, and be unkillable in most situations, with all of that just being kept in check by her vampiric impulse. However, while that's simple, it's undeniable that Arcuaid is the strongest native living creature on this planet at full potential, at least. Made even more so with the fact that she is the final living true ancestor. Simple abilities are the best at time, and fortunately being virtually unkillable and changing the world to your will is kinda the epitome of that. I say this, but aliens also exist, so for personal thoughts, honestly I quite like Arcuaid. As I've already said a plethora of times, she really is just a simple character. Her story is one of wanting to live a normal life that she never had, and it's a perfect match to Shiki's own story. And in that story, she displays a charming attitude, yet surprising wiseness. Her whimsical, energetic nature is hard to dislike, and her personality is just too easy to care for. Arcuaid may not be my personal favorite character in Tsukihime, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't love her in her own right. She's easy to care for, having one of my favorite tropes, while having a simple story that acts as a great introduction into the world of Tsukihime, as well as a first taste of what's potentially to come. Without Arcuaid, the titular Moon Princess, Tsukihime just wouldn't be the same. Anyways, that's all for this episode of Type Moon Character Showcase. I hope you all enjoyed it and are also preparing for the remake to see this cute little vampire once again. For now though, I'll be taking my leave, and until I see you next time, farewell. See you all somewhere else on the internet.